Our next speaker, Scott too, is with Trane Technologies, which is an equipment manufacturer, often thought of for air conditioners, although I bet they have a lot more. They're a very large S&P 500 company. And when I opened up Trane's website, uh, right on the landing page was the Gigaton Challenge, a way to make a huge difference. So there's plenty of opportunity, I guess, in every plan for the future. I hear how much buildings use electricity, and besides lighting, it's usually about heating and air conditioning. And your topic is the corporate response to climate change. So please take it away, Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and thanks everyone, all the other panelists and all the audience. It's great to be here, and congratulations to Peter and team for 20 years of Wall Street Green. I participated in many of these sessions over the years, happy to sponsor. Trane is an original equipment manufacturer, as Tom mentioned, an OEM, one of the companies that actually manufactures things that people purchase, both homeowners as well as building owners. We are in the built environment very heavily. As Tom mentioned, we are the largest producer of cooling equipment. And 1 out of every 2 commercial buildings in the US depends on Trane for some part of either automation in the building, controlling the air in the building, or providing comfort systems. And we also own Thermo King. One of our strategic brands is Thermo King. If you don't know Thermo King, you certainly enjoy what Thermo King brings to you. We're the largest transport refrigeration company in the world, meaning our units keep perishables in the back of trucks, trains, buses, railways, and marine vessels cool or at some temperature that allows the food, if it's food, to be fresh when it reaches you. We deliver roughly 60+% of the world's fresh food in 170 countries every day. And COVID meant something brand new to the Thermo King brand. For years, our innovation and solution for helping sushi grade tuna make it from Japan to the US mainland, we turned that into an innovation that allowed us to ship and provide the solution for the Pfizer vaccine at -70, or as President Biden said, at a temperature equal to what it's like on the face of Mars. So we got it to -70 and transporting the vaccines around the world. Also, as Tom mentioned, all of that cooling equipment, it absolutely is an energy or electricity consumer. And so that probably gets to one of the points that I wanted to make about what's driving all of this action. One of the things that I can tell you is very clear to Trane Technologies is that we fully see how we have to be part of the solution going forward, because where we find ourselves today related to greenhouse gases, I think we all can agree, cannot be where we are by 2030. And so our company took a really hard look at that several years ago and figured out that there were some large trends that we were facing that we had to actually do our part, not just in new solutions, but also in getting the word out to policymakers, to regulating agencies. For us, sometimes that's groups like the Kigali Amendment, Montreal Protocol, the Conference of the Parties, what's referred to as COP, and the COP meetings, because many times those are the frameworks that not only send the signals to the markets and to nations, but they also are part of the framework that regulates some of our products, since we actually use a greenhouse gas as a raw material. Refrigerants, HFCs, HFOs, which are the new generation of refrigerants, are used to actually, the sort of the magic within the system to help cool buildings. And although we're making great strides in reducing the impact of those, they still are part of the recipe currently. Our company has led the way not only in recognizing that we could transition faster, but also we've helped others, including government agencies and our industry as a whole globally, recognize there were some gaps. There are just some questions that have not been asked, some have not been explored. And so we've been leading since about 2015 for the last 6 or 7 years, a research project to come up with what is the next best thing related to refrigerants, and how else might we think about cooling and providing comfort around the world, maybe in ways that are not obvious today. We set about doing that, but we've also found out that over the years that setting these bold commitments and bold targets can provide a North Star, not only for our own employees and for our innovation efforts and research development, but it also sends a signal to some really important other stakeholders. One of the signals it sends is to within our own industry is that we are attempting to sort of break out and break ahead, and we invite them to join us there, since the industry as a whole is really a handful of major players. And so when one moves, many times it pulls the others. And so we've not shied away from doing that. And then secondly, it sends a signal to policymakers. Policymakers really need to know what's possible at scale for the economy before regulations are put in place. And so we've not been shy in sitting with regulators, sitting with policymakers, and helping them understand what's actually possible at the time frame that we believe it's possible, and also helping them understand all of the other levers that have to be pulled for us to put things into the marketplace. Building codes have to be changed many times. Testing and piloting has to be done in a certain order before we can introduce some of these systems into the market. And so we've been very busy at that. I'll give you one of the things that made it really clear to us why we had to do some of this work, just sort of for context. Roughly 15% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions comes from heating and cooling buildings globally. That's a large piece of the entire footprint of the Earth. 15% from heating and cooling buildings. And there's another 10% that's related to food loss. Now, food loss is what happens when it's before it makes it to us as consumers. So that's in the transport, so leaving a farm, the transportation to a supermarket or to a warehouse. Food waste is what happens when you take the food home with you and you choose to throw it away. Food loss, though, can be prevented. In the US, we prevent almost all food loss. We're a 95% plus on the food loss side. We've gotten really, really good at picking up food at a farm, moving it along down the roads or however it's moved to a warehouse or to a supermarket with almost no food loss. However, there are countries in the world, in emerging markets, where the cold chain, as we would call it, is not mature at all. And so those countries have built in food loss as fresh food is being transported. And that food loss in those countries represents roughly 10% of the greenhouse gas footprint. And so we see some great opportunities to go and solve the food loss issues in areas where the cold chain is not nearly mature. So I wanted to mention that the 15% from buildings, heating and cooling, the 10% from food loss, the Trane Technologies sees roughly 25% of the greenhouse gas footprint directly related to our business strategy. And so that has truly become our North Star as a company. We see all of our efforts. If you go on the website, as Tom mentioned, and I invite you to, you'll see that sustainability is not some theme or initiative that's on the side. It's truly driving everything we do, our strategy, our innovation, our engagement, both internally and externally. All of the major facets of the company are really around how do we solve those big issues of the megatrends that I mentioned around heating and cooling different buildings differently in the future, and reducing the impacts of food loss, both of which are major contributors to greenhouse gas footprint. One of our commitments, you may have heard about, it's called the Gigaton Challenge. It is the single largest commitment any company has made to scope 3 emissions. That's the emissions of your products once you leave them with a customer. Or as some would say, it's the emissions that it's very hard to control. And we've committed to reducing our customers' carbon footprint by 1 gigaton, which is equal to the annual emissions of the UK, France, Spain, and Italy combined. So it's a really large commitment. Our goal is to do our part to bend the curve away from where we currently are, and that rise to something that's much more manageable by 2030 and beyond. And so that's been front and center for us since we became Trane Technologies only about a year ago. March 2nd last year was when we spun off our industrial businesses and became the new Trane Technologies, fully focused on these solutions. And you can also go on the website and learn more about the Gigaton Challenge. We're very focused on several pathways that allow us to do that. So before you ask the questions, I'll give you a few of those. One is that we are approaching buildings as a system And when you approach a building as a system, you can get an exponential gain in efficiency. So moving away from components in the building to really using all of the levers that can be pulled to create a new level of efficiency. So that's everything from controlling the building's environment to automating the building, to using data analytics to understand how the energy is being used, consumed, either on the demand side or tweaking something on how the energy is entering the building from the supply side. So the entire chain has great opportunities around efficiency. So that's one pathway. And then another is just accelerating clean technologies. One example I'd like to give is around commercial heat pumps. Heat pumps have been around a while. There's a lot of misunderstanding and myths about heat pumps. People are still thinking in a very 80s mindset about heat pumps. Maybe they don't work in cold climates. Maybe they can't be used in large buildings. And all of those things are no longer true at all. We have commercial heat pumps being installed all over Europe. They're replacing fossil fuel burning boilers, which are used to heat buildings. And so what we're able to do is decouple a building completely from fossil fuel, thus decarbonizing the building, plugging everything in, and using heat pumps, using commercial heat pumps, very brand new applications of this that we're using that have a over 300% efficiency gain over what's being replaced. And so it's tremendous. It's sort of a win-win-win. It's one of those, why would we not do that scenarios? And so we are looking forward to bringing those systems into the US. We believe it's going to be the big answer for how do we begin to truly decarbonize big buildings in places like Manhattan and Dallas and Boston and Miami and elsewhere who are attempting to decarbonize the building one piece at a time. But there are some big gaps there. And one of those has been heating all along. And so we have a solution for what I think will be something very exciting as we move forward with the brand new Biden climate plan. And for any city like New York City that's set decarbonization targets and are searching for ways to truly make it happen by 2030. I wanted to just mention one or two more things before we take some questions. One is that we didn't stop at just the Gigaton challenge for our products and for customers. We also have committed to carbon neutral operations. So it's not enough for just to do something about our products and adjust them. We feel it's really important to walk the talk. And so we've committed to the highest level of operational commitments that include things like net positive water, zero waste to landfills in the true sense of the word, meaning nothing will go to landfill by 2030. And we also have chosen another one that's sort of a big North Star for us, and that's an absolute energy consumption reduction, something that very few, if any, manufacturing firms have ever attempted to do. And that's a 10% absolute energy consumption reduction, regardless of how we grow the revenue, regardless of how many products we make. Our plan is to reduce how much energy we use, or to truly decouple our energy use from how many products and how we make the products going forward. So all of those things are truly driving a new level of innovation, engagement by our employees, and a lot of interest by policymakers and customers.